Harper Audio presents So Many Ways to Begin by Jon McGregor. Read by Matt Bates. They came in the morning, early, walking with the others along tracks and lanes and roads, across fields, down the long low hills which led to the slow pull of the river, down to the open gateways in the city walls, the hours and days of walking showing in the slow shift of their bodies, their breath steaming above them in the cold morning air as the night fell away at their backs. They came quietly, the swish of dew-wet grasses brushing against their ankles, the pat and splash of the muddy ground beneath their feet, the coughs and murmurs of rising conversation as the same few phrases were passed back along the lines. Here we are now, nearly there. Just to the bottom of the hill, and then we'll sit down. Cigarettes were lit, hundreds of cigarettes, thin leathery fingers expertly rolling a pinch of tobacco into a lick of paper without losing a step. Cigarettes were cadged, offered, shared, passed down to nervous young hands eager for that first acrid taste of adulthood, cupping a mouthful of it in the windshield of their open fists in imitation of fathers and uncles and older brothers, coughing as it burnt down into their untested young lungs, the spluttered-out smoke twisting upwards and mingling with their cold, clouded breath, as they made their way between flowering hawthorn hedges and cowslip-heavy banks down towards the city walls. They wore suits of a kind, all of them, woolen waistcoats and well-knotted neckerchiefs, thick tweed jackets with worn elbows and cuffs, moleskin trousers with frayed seams tucked into the tops of their boots. The younger ones carried bundles of clothes, brown paper parcels fastened with string, slung across their shoulders or clasped to their chests, held tightly in their damp, nervous hands as they started to gather pace, pulled down the hill by the sight of the city, by their eagerness to be first, and by the impatience of the men and the boys pressing in from behind, still foggy from sleep, still aching from the long walk the day before, but forgetting all that as they came to their journey's end. From the top of the hill, where others were only now beginning that last long downward traipse, the city looked quiet and still, wrapped in a pale May morning mist, weighted with the same brooding promise that cities have always held when glimpsed from a distance like this, the same magnetic pull of hopes and opportunities. But as those first men and boys came into the city, their boots beginning to stamp and echo across the cobbled ground, windows were opened and curtains pulled back, and the city began to wake. Sleepy children peered from low upstairs windows, the hushed chatter and the rumbling of feet signalling the start of the day they'd been looking forward to, calling to each other and pulling faces at the children in the houses across the street. Landlords opened the doors and shutters of their bars, sweeping the floors and standing in their doorways with brooms in their hands to watch their customers arrive. Stallholders finished preparing their pitches around the edges of the square, keeping an eye on the small group of guards by the steps of the new town hall. And from each end of the long square, from the road leading in from the bridge to the east, from the gateway under the lodge to the west, from the road winding out along the river to the south, the army of workers appeared, hurrying on with the growing excitement of arrival, calling greetings to friends not seen for the past 6 months, looking around for others yet to arrive, asking after health and families and wives. And the crowd of people in the square grew bigger and noisier, and fathers began to lay hands on the shoulders of their youngest sons, keeping them close, wary of letting them drift away too soon, listening to the snatches of conversation echo back and forth, looking out for the farmers and foremen to start to appear, waiting for the business of the day to begin. Mary Friel stood with her father and brothers, watching, her youngest brother Tommy clutching her hand. "You okay there, Tommy?" she whispered down to him. He looked up at her, nodding, a look of annoyance on his young face, and pulled his hand away. Soon, as if at some unseen signal, deals began to be made all over the square. "You looking for work, son?" the smartly dressed men would say, glancing down. "How much you after?" And the older boys, the ones who knew their price, all the ones who could say they were experienced, stronger, would get more work done, tried their luck with 8, 9, 10 pounds, while the younger ones who knew no better or could ask no more said,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?